Welcome back to the Larson Show. I don't think that anybody doubts that Venezuela is in a bad way right now. 1,000,000% interest on average every year there. The economy out of control. Maduro not willing to give up. The National Assembly choosing an interim president for the country. And our country is in the position, since it seems to be the adult on the planet in many cases, is trying to make sure that the right thing happens there. Frank Gaffney joins me now, who's founder and president of the Center for Security Policy. Frank, welcome back to the program. And what could America do about this, and what should America do about this?
I tend to think the single most important thing we can do, Lars, is to help the people of Venezuela and this new interim president, Juan Guaido, take apart the secret police apparatus that is, with the help of the Cubans and the Iranians and the Russians and the Chinese and probably others as well, perpetuating the hold on power of this brutal dictator, Nicolas Maduro, who has, in addition to his other credits, if I could call it that, destroyed the economy of the country, as well as oppressing its people and making their lives very, very difficult indeed. So this is the pressure point, and I think to the extent that the United States has some expertise in this area and has worked with others to achieve a similar kind of liberation, shall we say, that would be the single most important thing I believe we could be doing.
So when the president says all options are on the table, I like seeing that, because I don't think there's any point to foreclosing an option and saying, well, we wouldn't go that far. And when the next logical question is, well, is a military option on the table? I almost wonder if John Bolton didn't deliberately write that thing on his yellow legal pad as he was walking out, because he knew that it would send the mainstream media into a tailspin until they found something else to scream and shout about. But we should have that on the table, although I don't think anybody could imagine America sending troops into Venezuela. Can you?
No, I don't think it's very likely, certainly not in numbers, nor would I recommend it. But the thing is that an important sea change has been taking place in our hemisphere, Lars, as I'm sure you're following, but many of us have seemingly missed it, and that is that in the past, in the not-so-distant past for that matter, it was the Hugo Chavez's, it was the Nicolas Maduro's, his successor, it's the Daniel Ortega's, it's the Fidel and Raul Castro's and the like, the hard left who were ascendant in the region, no more. Notably, in the immediate context of Venezuela, the sea change that has taken place, specifically of relevance to this conversation, is the election in both Brazil and Colombia, two of Venezuela's most important neighbors, of very conservative governments. And so the options to do something on the ground to help the people of Venezuela free themselves of this oppressive police state and government, I think is now there's an option there that does not require U.S. boots on the ground. There can be support from others who are in that region, and that's better all the way around, I think, for us as well as for the people of Venezuela, and of course for the neighbors who are being overrun by millions of Venezuelans who have fled their country rather than starve to death there.
Yeah, is there anything else we can do on a practical level that more than sort of the moral support that we're offering and saying we want to see the country do the right thing, and that the National Assembly is making the choice of who the new president or interim president is? But is there anything else we ought to be doing at this point?
Well, look, I think we ought to be establishing through that new interim presidency channels of communications as well as conduits for resources and other help that we might provide. This is, the sort of thing that has to be done on an emergency basis to save lives in some cases, and also to attenuate the kind of efforts that are clearly underway now on the part, as I mentioned, of Vladimir Putin's Russia and Xi Jinping's China, and the mullahs of Iran and Hezbollah, their proxies, and the Basij. You remember these characters that have been used to suppress the opponents of the regime in Iran. They're now in Venezuela, as is the secret police of Cuba. So all of these need to be counteracted, Lars, and I think that the starting point is to help the people who are turning out in the streets by the tens of thousands in support of this new government to understand how to go about neutralizing and beginning the process of rolling up this means by which the regime is being sustained in power to the detriment of the people of Venezuela, among others.
Well, Frank, what do you think about this? I mean, American presidents have an amazing amount of influence from their bully pulpit, and to them it may start to feel like, well, I give speeches and people respond. But I honestly think, I said this when Obama was president and the kids were marching in the streets of Tehran, that if President Obama had come out and given some speeches and said, you're right, the government's wrong and the government should not be shutting you down, it's moral support, but it's moral support from the leader of the free world. And I think maybe Americans start to take it for granted. Oh, another speech by another president. We've seen 1,000 of them. But I think to people on the rest of the planet, when they see it happen, that it has a marked effect. Maybe a few more speeches by President Trump about how much he wants to see them make Venezuela great again, maybe.
Yeah, look, I think that's the bare minimum that the president can do, and I think he's doing some of it. We need to ramp it up. I'm simply saying that, Lars, we've seen revolutions succeed around the world, in Eastern Europe, notably, in other parts of South Asia, Central Asia, and the like. This is a time when I think some encouragement, yes, but also some how-to techniques can be brought to bear to actually make a difference on the ground, which is what's urgently needed.
Sounds like a great idea. Frank Gaffney is the head and founder of the Center for Security Policy. Frank, thank you very much for the time.